Game begin.
Hello and welcome back to the Spike Colony podcast. I am here with top 4 New York City Hex & Co. Weekly League top 8 top forest, Michael J. Flores.
You are with that person. That is true. You made a factual statement.
Mike, how was the top 8? So for the people who don't know, we play every week, New York City in Hex & Co. Union Square. There's like a points leaderboard. And then at the end of a quarter, there is a top 8. And you went into the top 8 as like the 2 seed, 3 seed. What was the deal?
2 seed. Yeah. I played Dreadnot. It was really interesting because one of the top 4 players dropped out at the last minute. So it messed with the seeding. So I thought that I was going to play against like a red aggro player. He'd been playing like Medvedev burn, regular burn, like red-green kind of survival madness aggro. He ended up playing goblins, so I was right that I was playing red aggro. But then I got switched to Matt W., who was in the Spike Colony house at LobsterCon, who his range is
He actually wasn't
different.
in the house. He stayed. He drove me and Lan, but he actually stayed with a friend. So
no, that's Matt M.
Hero. Oh, you're saying? Oh yeah, Matt Wallen. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Okay, so
but there's a lot of Matts in our.
Anyway, so it was real interesting because I'm like his range is survival madness. I'm sorry, survival trade wind or like tinker fling, and I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. So like last minute, I just added some cursed totems to my sideboard because I didn't know what else to do. But I didn't consider how the volatility of Simon dropping out would have impacted everyone else. So Matt W. thought he was playing against Yosef in the first round, so he brought Burn because Yosef is always playing blue-white control. So I had Burn first round, and I had turn 2 Dreadnot combo in game 1 and turn 3 double projected Dreadnot combo in game 2. So that was, just a situation where I had 2 fewer good sideboard cards because they've been transformed into curse totems.
You might need to give viewers some background on your list just to catch them up, aside from just swapping in curse totems. So were you playing the AK list or like the AK1 brain freeze back to basic sideboard or what?
So I played, I switched recently to a deck that was similar to my LobsterCon deck, which is 4 AK, back to basics in the sideboard, 1 brain freeze in the main deck, 1 brain freeze in the sideboard, but largely just swaps out the AKs for like the 3 missing impulses and then a second Flash of Insight in the main deck. And the reason I did that was not because I think impulse is better than AK. I don't think it is at all in a lot of situations, especially if you think you're playing against opposing Dreadnot or blue-white control or Landstill or whatever, but simply because I lost my feature match because I kept a hand with like a Daze, 2 land, 2 AK, and a back to basics, and I didn't hit my 3rd land drop before I got locked under Ponza. So if I had had an impulse in that spot, I would have won the match.
And you're just playing 17 islands?
Yeah. So like that's actually the crux of it. Like I just missed. Who knows? Because she made
sometimes you need to land.
Yeah. So like
that's like the floor of impulse is sometimes you just need your 3rd land drop.
So I played it in 1 league, went 3-0, and then so I decided I would play. I had play because I was 2nd seed, and so I would have play throughout the top 8 unless I was in the finals against Yosef, and Yosef's on blue-white control, and I really like me on a main deck brain freeze against blue-white control, right? So feel like that's going to be a trivial matchup, even if I'm on the draw. So I played match 1. I had turn 2 natural combo, and then game 2 I had turn 2 natural combo in game 2. I just didn't use it because I figured he'd have an interaction spell, so I waited until I had a vision charm back up on turn 3, and it worked out. But I felt like the bad side of the Dreadnot range. I think there's a reason that Dreadnot doesn't win every event. I mulled pretty hard in the game ones, and then I lost to low material. I lost to just not drawing Dreadnots in the game ones of my next 2 matches, which were against Goblins and Red Aggro when I was on the play. I literally lost to Sly in game 1 on the play in round 3, and I was just like dreading never hearing the end of it from you. It's like, just didn't get there, right? But round 2, mulligan 2 unkeepable hands. Wasn't really competitive in game 1. Game 2, I mulliganed into like a hand that was landed spells, but not good at all. So I played first turn Island. He played first turn Fetch Land, and then fetched, and I stifled his fetch because I was just like, my hand is terrible, right? So, but I had a counter spell and a Flash of Insight. So I'm like, maybe if I get a land into the graveyard, a spell into the graveyard will help my Flash of Insight. I just need to buy time. This is going to keep a lackey off of me probably. So then I, of course, drew Dreadnot as my 7th card. And then he was playing Rakdos goblins, not Gruul goblins. And then he Cabal Therapied me on turn 2 for Dreadnot, which like made me monkey tilt. Because I'm like, if I had Dreadnot, why would I have stifled your land? Right? Like that makes no sense. But of course I drew the Dreadnought. And so he got me. And but I ended up getting game 2. Game 3, I mulliganed again, and I lost because I had to foil with my Vision Charm. If I had like a Sorrow's Path, a basic Swamp, a Maze of Ith, right? Anything like just from the mulligan hit, I probably would have won. So lost round 2, and then round 3, I ended up pulling it out despite losing game 1 to Taylor on Mono Red Burn. It was a very good match, very close match. And he played, I believe, 4 copies of Goblin Vandal in his main deck, which obviously gives you a lot of oomph against.
Dreadnought. That's been making the rounds. The throwback James Smith's 2023 technology that he used to fight against Parfait decks, rearing its head again to fight against Dreadnought.
Well, he had 4 of those in his main deck and sided in 11 cards. So I guess God bless me that I was able to pull out the match. It was very tight.
Yeah, it sounds like you should have gone 1-2.
Yeah, so I had described. It was really interesting because he had to, in order for him to win game 3, he had to use every last life point and every last mana, and I think he played correctly. But it was a spot where playing correctly actually screws you. So the way that I saw it, I think I was at 7. He had 4 mana, 1 card in hand, which I knew was a Pyroblast from a previous Curse Scroll activation. Curse Scroll, 4 land, and then a Dreadnought. I'm sorry, not a Dreadnought. A Jackal Pup, a Goblin Vandal, and a Grim Lavamancer. So theoretically, he has to attack me for 3, not use the Vandal, shoot me for 2 with the Grim Lavamancer, and then hit me with the Curse Scroll. And his 1 card is Pyroblast. So if he draws Mountain, I actually lose the game. There's nothing I can do because my plan is for him to do all those things and then stifle his Grim Lavamancer, potentially stifle his Vandal, because it's possible he'll just try to kill my guy with his Vandal and then win the next turn. So I'll use a stifle and he won't have any mana left to win the game. But if he draws a Mountain, he could just Pyroblast me, Pyroblast my stifle. He did not draw a Mountain. What he in fact drew was a Lightning Bolt, but he correctly Curse Scrolled me on upkeep. So if he doesn't Curse Scroll me on upkeep, he would have been like mathematically locked to win the game because he just cast the Lightning Bolt with 4 mana up, and there's just nothing I can do. It's 1 additional damage. The only reason I can win on this line is because he either has to use his last mana to Grim Lavamancer me and or can't activate the Goblin Vandal. But if he just doesn't use the Curse Scroll on his upkeep, he has overload damage by 1 and like extra mana by 2. But he made the right play, right? I think like you have to Curse Scroll there so that you get the mathematical hit, and then if everything else falls into place, you win the game by exactsies. But again, if he draws Mountain, he wins the game. But he did not draw Mountain. He lost to playing correctly.
So zooming out a bit, how did you sort of like, you're still kind of doing the same, like just play whatever deck you felt like approach this season.
Well,
yeah. So what was kind of your perspective on the season? Like, what were people playing? What did you feel like it was like?
For the top 8, I played Dreadnot because I thought my opponent was going to be on a red aggro deck, right? Like whether it was going to be Medvedev burn or, you know, red green or whatever it was. I thought like that range is narrow enough that I could just play Dreadnought and be at a mathematical advantage if I'm on the play. So that's what I chose. But in the previous weeks, is that what you're asking? Like I played.
Yeah, I'm just sort of asking, like, you know, how was this quarter of, you know, weeklies?
Yeah,
what was kind of like? I mean, I think like the big surprise to me, I hadn't been able to come down to practically any, but like Joseph and Jeremy were just like, you know, some new names in the top 8, and they were also kind of like one decking the entire season,
Yeah,
right?
so no, Jeremy played a bunch of different decks, and I think Jeremy would have been higher seed if he didn't screw around. He played a didgeridoo theme deck at one point. So Jeremy is a friend of David Tao's. He came to Fogo de Chao with us at the end of last year, me and you and SWB and Andy.
Yeah, and he was like a big legacy guy from the like pandemic 90s MTG scene, I guess.
He started playing the pre-modern leagues the week after that, right? I think he just started showing up like literally right after that. And he took my spot in the top 8 last quarter. So I had surgery, and so literally the day before. So
so he's ninth last quarter.
Yeah, so I think I could. It is conceivably possible that I could have tried to defend my title, but it was like I was in a pretty bad way at the time, so I didn't defend. So I called up Jeremy and I'm like, just make sure you show up. My slot will fall to you. So Jeremy's going to have a kid in, I think, August or September. So he's really just trying to get a lot of magic in before that happens. And he wanted to do better than last quarter. So, you know, he snuck in last quarter on account of me having surgery. And then I think he lost in the quarterfinals to SWB. So he just wanted to do better. Yosef mostly single decked it. He plays a couple of different decks, but he has done quite well with his version of blue-white control. So his deck is not land still. It's very different. It's like,
is it the Temple of the False God deck?
Yeah, it's like 23andMe without the green, right? He's got like Decree, Sabo's Web, Eternal Dragon, Exalted Angel. So it's just good cards that you would play in maybe a mono white control deck with Factor Fiction and counter spells.
Yeah, right. It's just also blue white the rock.
Yeah, so you know, he lost to Taylor. Actually, I looked over and there was a Warmth and a COP red in play, and Taylor won the game. So I mean, Joseph has beaten me on burn when you know, he has a wide variety of burn hate cards because he typically loses game 1. Yeah, I believe he plays Chill, Warmth, and COP red in some numbers, so it's hard to metagame against him unless you're playing like Tranquil Domain.
You can just play Mishra's Factory and more Curse Scroll if you're worried about that. I think you accidentally hit the mute, but yeah.
That would be terrible. He has Sabo's Web, and he has disenchanted me many times. So that is not good against his version. I think he might have 4 Sabo's Web. So his deck is like...
So how did Taylor pull it out against the Copper Red and Warmth?
He just had 4 creatures in play, and I believe he got the last 2 points by Mog Fanaticing his own guy in response to a Sword Supply shares in order to obtain Threshold so that he could use his Barbarian Ring, which was, look, basically Xaxes. Like Yosef had to stay alive by casting an Absorb that was like putting him in a bad way. Then he was going to plow a creature, plowing the creature keeps the damage off of him and then also exiles it. But then Taylor saw that he could Mog Fanatic his own creature, which would put 2 creatures into the graveyard, which would turn on his Barbarian Ring. It was pretty cool, pretty expert to put together over the course of the end of that game. I really appreciate Taylor. You know, he started asking me stuff about the burn deck at LobsterCon this year, and he just like really kind of jumped into learning about it with both feet, and then he played it a lot. He has gorgeous Chinese Portal Mountains that I've never even seen the art for before. And
Portal
he has
basics are nice.
Like they're completely different, right? Like I've seen Portal cards before. I've just never seen this art. And then, again, he had, what do you call it? Like these foreign goblin vandals against me, and I had to scryfall them in the middle of the match to make sure I could win.
Yeah, even after you scryfall them, it's really hard to understand what they do. Like, if
it is a complicated card, it's got a lot of words.
If you like attack with a like the big one that came up was like if you attack with 2 goblin vandals and your opponent tries to block one with a Mistress Factory, they lose their Mistress Factory and you lose nothing because of how the trigger works.
So I'm just looking at my quarter. I believe I was the trophy leader on the quarter. I only finished second place because I didn't play every week. I would think I was in second place by 1 point, but I didn't play every week. And the best thing ever for me to not have been in first place, because if I'd been in first place, the way that I would have gotten there was beating SWB at the end of last week, which would have sent SWB into being my quarterfinals matchup, which is just not what you want in your life. So instead, we were both just, I think he was in fourth and I was in second at the end. But I had trophies with Dreadnot, the Wild Mongrel deck, the
Wild Mongrel deck, the Berlin.
Yeah, it's the Berlin deck. Although I played a slightly different sideboard and Burn, and I played Burn right before LobsterCon. It's kind of a litmus test to see if I wanted to play it at LobsterCon, and then I 3-0'd, and I'm like, I'm not going to play it anyway. So, and then I had like a 1-1-1 with Terrageddon, a 1-2 with Burn. That was, I think like I 2-1 most weeks and had 3.
I'm looking at your leaderboard page right now, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You got some good decks, some good performances with Dreadnot, Burn. You're even in there with the Rock, 62% match win rate. It keeps scrolling. Head-to-head records. 13 matches. 13 matches against SWB. 2-11.
Yeah. 2-11.
It's like he's got your number.
He's
how does he do it?
He just gets me. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's weird.
It's weird because this could be the case with anyone, right? Like, SWB really great, right? But like, it could be that you have this record against, Andy Levine or Luis or something. But it just so happens that not only have you and SWB played like almost twice as much as the next few people, but you're 2-11.
Okay, so this is
you and SWB are the top 2 all-time points leaders.
And I think we're tied for trophies. I think
everyone's tied for trophies. Everyone has a okay. So you're
no.
It says on the site that SWB has 14 trophies and you have 11.
I have 11.
A trophy being a weekly 3-0, but nobody has
so many because he's beaten me so many times in the last.
Yeah. It would be like you might actually have more if you didn't have to play SWB for so many of your trophies.
I think there was a quarter where I only had 1 trophy, and that was the 1 week that I didn't get paired against SWB in the last round. So like, he's still 3-0'd that week, I think. But so what ends up happening is he just always has the perfect deck.
Yeah, he just counter picks. Yeah,
it's insane, right? Like
he does he brings 2 deck boxes, but instead of basing it based on who he gets paired in the first round, he just looks over at what you're playing.
Yeah. So like I'm like there was 1 week where I was playing Stasis and I'm 2-0. He sits down, blind mulligans to 5, and says I can go first. And he's just playing elves. And like, I just have no shot whatsoever.
And SWB played survivalist elves for the top 8.
Yeah. So last week when he beat me, not in the top 8, but the previous week, which was the last round of the Swiss for the quarter, I was playing the Rock. I'm at the 2-0, and he's just playing this green-white Cataclysm deck that I don't think the Rock can beat. Right, like, and like when I say I don't think it can beat it, it's just like I just got all the draws you would ever want to get with the Rock. Like, I got tons of value with Pernicious Deed. I hit his key creatures with Duress and Cabal Therapy, like whatever you want. But like, I just could never win. Like, I have to hold back lands because he has Cataclysm and Armageddon in his deck. So like, he'll just do something like play an Exalted Angel, and like the ways that I could destroy an Exalted Angel are mostly like deeding it. But I don't have 6 land in play because I was holding lands back, right? So I don't get blown out by
Oh my
Armageddon,
God.
right? So like
that's like the most rock thing in the world.
Yeah,
it's just like I can't
just
play 6 lands to deed my opponent's angel because
so like
I'm worried about getting cataclysmed.
So like SWB is just playing multiple elephants and Mox Diamonds into my deed so that I'll blow up my deed for value, knowing that like he just has it, right? Like there's just nothing I can do. The biggest creature in my deck that week was a 4/4. I had like 3 Ravenous Baloth, I think, and then Deranged Hermit isn't big, right? It's powerful, it's not big.
It's Deranged Hermit doesn't beat well, I mean, I can plausibly keep a Exalted Angel untapped, but it can't stand up to one.
No, like, and then he's got plows and his own removal, and like how bad is a Deranged Hermit against a Cataclysm? So like this one game, I'm like setting it up. I'm like, okay, I can get this. If he has to do the following things, then I can get it. So I set him up, and he just oaths on his upkeep, turns over an Exalted Angel, flips over Ray of Revelation while oathing up the Exalted Angel, and then goes to his draw step, uses Sylvan Library, and reveals a Cataclysm to me. Like, all the 3 cards that are all good against me are all, like, set up in that turn. Where, like, I have to set up this... There's just nothing else I can do. I have to set up this deed to try to get a lot of leverage against him. But there's just... Yeah, like... That's just the super typical me versus SWB in the last round. He's just always got me on deck. The only time he didn't have me on deck was the season I won when I was on Elves and he was on Tide Control, which is just a really bad
worked out. Yeah,
Tide Control.
Well, that's that's pretty meaningful. At the end of the day, all that matters is who's got the quarterly crown. Because I think that there's enough goofing off that. There's enough noise in the individual trophy data, although not that it's not impressive to have 14 total, 14 11, and then it's like 4s and 5s for the rest of us.
So the interesting thing about this past top 8 was, prior to this past top 8 for the first 4 seasons, it was Landy Ho beat Rich Busey to win season 1. SWB beat me to win season 2. I beat SWB to win season 3. And then Rich Busey beat SWB to win season 4. So prior to this season, there had been only 4 people to have made the finals. And we each had one season. Rich, myself, SWB, and Lan. But this one, it was definitely going to be a new one. It was going to be Mookie Spolder or Jeremy, and Jeremy won with Terrageddon. I wanted to ask you, with Jeremy's win, and then also in the Bougie Discord, Slow King won the Webcam Monthly with his new version of the Slow King. I don't know what you want to call it. Like is it Espertog? Is it fair?
He calls his deck Super Wayfarer now.
Yeah.
So we'll respect Super Wayfarer, I suppose.
So have you changed your mind at all about Mox Diamond decks? I think like all these decks would just be better without Mox Diamond. Maybe not specifically. Well, like the one thing is, like, a lot of these decks can play fewer than 4 Mox Diamonds. So Slow King plays 3, and I think he could play like 2 or whatever. And there's like 1,000 reasons for that. I mean, I think he could plausibly play 0, but if you really want to do Mox things, I think it makes sense to play fewer than 4 and fewer than 3. Mostly hinged on the fact that, like, it's not very good if you don't do the other thing that you were planning on. So if it's Weathered Wayfarer, then fine. Or if it's Gush or whatever. I mean, we were just talking about Weathered Wayfarer decks, then fine. But like the rest of the time, there's a lot of drag from, obviously, it just being total air and drawing it in the late game. And also playing fewer than 4 lowers your chance of drawing 2, and drawing 2 is like a disaster. I don't know.
I was playing my Moxless Terra Oath deck. that just plays Wild Growth, right? And then Wild Growth enables playing Smokestack, and the Smokestack's really excellent against a lot of Terravore Oath's like worse matchups, or like trickier matchups, in the form of Replenish and Burn. And Smokestack just like really cleanly solves it. But like in the middle of it, I had just a game where like when turn 1 Wild Growth, turn 2 like Wild Growth again. And I was like, if this was like a double Mox hand, I would have had to mulligan it because it was like completely non-functional. But instead, I have like 5 mana sources in play, so I have like a turn 2 Stone Rain, a turn 3 double 2-drop or whatever, or turn 3 Smokestack or whatever, that kind of stuff. I think that obviously decks can perform well with Mox Diamond. They've performed well. Like I've done great with Mox Diamond in my deck. In the entire history of me playing pre-modern, but I think that it lands somewhere between like loose action to like strictly like drag on your deck.
It's interesting to me because like in particular I've had played the Savage Bastard deck, the Berlin deck, which is like I think among the worst versions of Terrageddon in terms of the impact of Mox Diamond, right? Because you have other cards whose thematic inclusion is discarding shit from your hand, right? So like, just ever drawn like 2 Wild Mongrels, like the second one's kind of bad.
Yeah, but in this instance, like the card you would have instead is Exalted Angel. I don't think that's like No, like you have a card that like is only good because you're discarding cards, and then you have another card that you can't play at all unless you're discarding cards. So I think it's just like among the worst, right? Like if you, and just in terms of Mox Diamond. I don't agree with the premise that 2 Wild Mongrels is bad. If you have 2 Wild Mongrels and your opponent has 1 blocker, you can attack with, but like you have Threat of Activation on.
No. Okay.
And if you have 2 Wild Mongrels, you can obviously just block with the one that you plan on making bigger.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like Wild Mongrel is a played card. I don't want to say a playable card, is a played card because of its ability to discard cards from hand, right? And you're just playing it in a deck that has a reduced number of cards in hand because it has this other card that only functions by discarding cards, right? So I think like
okay, I am accepting of that, but that has like I don't think that the presence of Mox Diamond in a deck is necessarily like bad for a deck containing Wild Mongrel. However, I do fundamentally agree that on average you'll have more cards in hand if your deck contains zero Mox Diamond, and that is going to make Wild Mongrel better if you plan on having cards in hand. And I in fact played my version of Terrageddon, and I just put 2 Wild Mongrels in the Exalted Angel slot, and I was really happy with them. And so like yeah, but it's like it's not like the kind of thing where you're just like looking at your deck and you're like, oh, I can't possibly play Wild Mongrel in this deck because my deck contains Mox Diamond. I mean, if anything, I would just be like, well, why am I playing Mox Diamond in this deck? But like,
I obviously played it.
So long as we've arrived at the place where we just like have this Terrageddon deck and we're like, oh, we kind of want a creature that can like block, a Goblin War Chief or a Goblin Lackey or all, a Jackal Pup or whatever. And you believe in Mox Diamond, right? If you believe in Mox Diamond, you're like, well, my deck also wants Mox Diamond because it has Weathered Wafer and has Terravore or whatever, cope reasons people have for playing this stupid card in the first place. Like you can believe those things at the same time and just be like, okay, well, maybe Mox Diamond makes Wild Mongrel like 1% less, and maybe Wild Mongrel, makes Mox Diamond like 1% less, but like, my deck altogether is still 10% better containing those cards, even though it's not the best Wild Mongrel deck that it can be, or the best Mox Diamond deck that it can be.
I wish I had taken more notes on the night that I played the Berlin deck, but I believe I cited out Wild Mongrel every round. It's interesting because I played Terrageddon twice this past season. Once was before LobsterCon. I played the
Terrageddon is your best performing deck. You have a 7-1-1 match record across 3 events.
Yeah, well, I went 1-1-1 that night, losing to Andy Levine. and then beating somebody, and then obviously probably time limit drawing, I assume. I'd have to go back and look. But I like the abundance version because, among other things, it gives you a good way to recoup your card advantage from all the cards you're discarding. But I think like maybe I don't have the right philosophy of playing the Berlin deck. Like the Berlin deck is a beatdown deck, and like other versions of Terrageddon that I've played are more kind of like control-ish decks. And
I mean, it certainly can be, right? Like, you know, Terrageddon is just like essentially a pile of cards. Like, it's really hard to be like
do different things, right?
It's like really hard for you to be. I mean, it's just it's a silly world we live in, right? Where it's just like one guy's like, oh, I'm just gonna Rich and Port somebody until they play all their lands out, and then I'm gonna Armageddon the lands, and the other guy's just
which
going
is
like,
so weird.
I'm gonna play a Wild Mongrel, and then I'm gonna Rich and Port them so that they die to the Wild Mongrel or something, and like it's really hard to make the pieces fit in this sort of like, you know, strategic, like this is my plan for the matchup kind of way. Instead, it's just like showing up to the battle with like, you know, some things that can sort of do a few different things. Like I think that Wild Mongrel is really great at doing something that I sort of underrated in pre-modern at large, which is just being like a playable 2-drop creature, right? Like very, very many decks have struggled to play a creature for 2. And 2, the difference between 2 and 3 is like enormous, right? Like, you know, 2 fits into the curve nicely. You can play double 2-drop on 4. You can play 2-drop, hold up, you know, 1-drop on 3, etc. Like 2-drops are easier to play through Rich and Ports, Wastelands, and Sphere of Resistance, etc., etc., etc. Like 2 is a nice number, and the creatures that you can play in your beatdown deck on 2 are like Quirion Dryad. Like there's like the burn deck has access to none, right? They're like, oh, we're gonna play Spine Sliver or Quirion Dryad themselves because there's now like the red green deck, and then like 3 is just like clogged. You have Terravor, Call to Herd, Annured Brush Hopper. You can just do whatever you want on 3. You can play Psych Tog, you can play, you know, a bunch of stuff, but yeah, Call to Herd is the first one I said. But you know, Wild Mongrel just being a 2-drop that can battle with like every goblin, every creature in the burn deck, you know, is huge, and like also be like very resistant to Lightning Bolt. I don't think it's great to pitch 2 cards in response to a Lightning Bolt, but you know, it's a lot faster if you can't play those 2 cards because, you know, your opponent is sending Lightning Bolts at you.
Well, you got a card back, but the card you got back was like a Desperate Ritual.
Yeah,
that's basically right. What you did,
right, and that's a resource that you need really hard when you're playing against burn, because against burn most of the time you need time more than you need cards. So, yeah, I agree with you that when you look at Wild Mongrel or you look at pre-modern as a format, and you tell somebody, you're like, hey, like all the aggressive decks like playing Wild Mongrel, and some of the mid-range decks also play Wild Mongrel, you might be like, oh, that's like silly. But then when you like start playing the games, you know, you could play a version of the Terrageddon deck where you have like Nimble Mongoose and Wild Mongrel. And, you know, the nice thing about creatures is that the more of them you have, like the better they become. Like they're a like linearly scaling resource, and they double the effectiveness of your removal as well. So I have like my like Lightning Angel deck, right? And it's like Lightning Angel is like really, really bad if it's the only creature in your deck. But if it's the 13th through 16th creature in your deck, it's really, really good. You know, because they've either spent all their time dealing with your other creatures and then now they're dying to Lightning Angel, or, you know, attacking for 6 is a lot better than attacking for 3. And Vindicating or Swords of Plowsharing your opponent's, you know, Wall Blossoms gets, you know, much, much better the more damage you're passing through. So, I mean, yeah, like I think that Terrageddon is like not a very powerful deck, but it also needed to do something in the 2 slot that affected the battlefield. And like you could play Fire Ice, you can play Naturalize, which, you know, is horrible. That's like another discussion we can have. Or you
you think Naturalize is horrible in the abstract, or it's horrible in
yeah. Like I think that I mean, I don't know if you want to sidetrack into this, but like there was like this.
I'm curious I think Naturalize is. I mean, it's obviously one of the most heavily played cards in the format.
Yeah. So
I've never heard the take that it is horrible. So I'm curious.
So I hate like Naturalize and Disenchant in the starting 60 of like very, very many decks.
That is a very 2026 take, right? Like back in 1994 or whatever, people play, or 1996 or whatever, people played like 5 Disenchants in their main deck and they were winning Pro Tours that way, right? Today, nobody does that, even though these cards are available, because if you have a Disenchant and they have a Jackal Pup of some kind, you're going to get run over, right? Like
exactly.
That's the 2026 take.
I mean, the biggest one was just so for the longest time, I barely played Seal Cleansing in the main deck of Replenish, and that's like when Replenish had Parallax Tide in the main deck. And then now I'm just like, what's the point, right? It's just like sometimes you get your opponent's Sylvan Library, like sometimes you get your opponent's Mox Diamond, and like the rest of the time, you know, you have a card that could be an Abeyance, that could be a Mana Leak, that could be a Sabo's Web, even. Like Sabo's Web, I think in the main deck of Replenish is like extremely inbred and, you know, obviously
it's a good performing card.
It's like
it shows up and performs a lot. Whether or not you think it's inbred.
If it does literally nothing, Replenish is like the best deck for it to do literally nothing for. But I think like
I don't think it's fair to say that it does nothing. Replenish is this weird deck in the format, which is I think unique now, which is not unique in the past, but like it's this good, powerful deck that's just like nothing but sloggy forecasting cost cards. Like the ability to just draw into your lands or maybe draw into the correct sloggy forecasting cost card without utilizing a lot of deck building space is a non-zero bonus for that deck.
Yeah.
I mean, does not exist for most other decks.
I mean, I think it's quite obviously a sideboard card that the Replenish deck is playing in the main so that it can play more sideboard cards.
Similarly, regulate your land draws. It's not like playing. I hate playing Meddling Mage in the main deck of Replenish, and a lot of successful people do that.
I think that there are pros and cons to playing Meddling Mage, Abeyance, and Sabo's Web,
and Mana Leak.
And Mana Leak. So Meddling Mage, Abeyance, Sabo's Web, Mana Leak. But at the bottom of my list is Seal of Cleansing. And the reason for that is the things that you're trying to target with Seal of Cleansing, you don't even know if they're in your opponent's deck at the point that you have Seal of Cleansing available to you, right? So most Replenish hands, you're sitting there like, oh, should I keep this? It's like, well, I've got like some 4-drops, I've got some, looting, and I've got some interaction. It's like, if your interaction is just Seal of Cleansing, it might actually be a blank. And that's exactly what you're saying. If your opponent's, has Jackal Pup, then your Naturalize or your Seal of Cleansing looks really, really bad. Expanding that to other ideas, like I also think that it's extremely thin in all the Ponzo Oath decks. They're just like, they just like play Naturalize because it's a green card and they're a green deck, and they're just kind of like, so what are you planning on naturalizing? It's like, I don't know.
For a second. So I think that Naturalize is a lot better than you seem to think that it is, and I also don't like it in the abstract. Right? I could tell you when I played the Rock 2 weeks ago. I win game 1 against Pedro on this red-green survival aggro deck. And then game 2, I get Phyrexian Furnace and shut down his Squee. And he just beats me with the madness aspect of his deck, right? Like, so he's madnessing out Basking Root Wallas with Survival of the Fittest, actually just more than enough card advantage to beat me, right? So, like, just spitting out Arrogant Worms, and his stuff's better on the battlefield than mine. So I was loath to side in Naturalize in this matchup because I'm just like, what am I to side in 4 Naturalize against 4 Survival? That seems so dumb, right? So then I sided in two Naturalize in game 3, and I killed his first Survival, and it helped me win. Like, I feel like Naturalize is like, it is shockingly good and efficient in pre-modern.
Well, let's stick to game 1 because like that's like the basis of my thesis, right? Like I'm just saying, like, Terravor is like a good example of a deck that just plays Naturalize in the main deck because it's like a green deck and it needs like something.
Typically has 1 Naturalize, 1 Seal. I think the Berlin deck has 3 total instead of 2 total.
Yeah, stuff like that. So, like, obviously, if you are playing post sideboard against a survival deck, you should have Naturalize somewhere in your world if you're a green deck, right?
Actually, that's the thing that I would challenge, right? Because I actually think Naturalize / Disenchant, to a lesser degree Seal of Cleansing, but they're all in the same sort of rate spectrum, are all kind of bad, right? So I agree with you. Right? So Like,
I mean, but you would still have them in your deck. It's not like
yeah,
you would,
I mean, you'd obviously like if you knew that you were always fighting enchantments instead of artifacts, you would just always play Ray of Revelation instead of Disenchant, right? You know,
okay, this is too distracting. The point is, my point is that they're sideboard cards. Like, I don't think it's like you should play them, you know, in your deck that can't beat Oath of Druids or can't beat Phyrexian Dreadnought or whatever. I think that it gets like the thing that you kind of would hear for like a long time during the sort of early portion of pre-modern's history was just like, oh, you should play Naturalize or Disenchant because they're just like most of the time there's a target.
There's always targets, yeah.
No, there's not always targets, right? Because you could be playing against goblins.
There's always targets.
Yeah, and which is already an exaggeration. And I'm just like, I think that is an extremely low bar for a card, which is that the majority of time this card is worth a card. And I'm just like, well, why don't I just play cards that are always worth a card, right?
It's funny because like if you're playing like what is the best target for a Naturalize, right? It's
Oath of Druids.
Or Phyrexian Dreadnought.
Phyrexian Dreadnought, yeah. Phyrexian Dreadnought or Duress. Both, or sorry, Oath of Druids Oath of Druids or Dreadnought. Those are the two targets.
Survival of the Fittest ain't bad. But like
the third target.
None of those cards did you get a lot of leverage on. I guess like you got a 2-for-1 on Phyrexian Dreadnought, which is true for any removal on Phyrexian Dreadnought. But the other ones are just 1-for-1s at the same mana, which is almost always implies you're behind. Yeah. Right? Like that's it's interesting.
Right, and there's like a lot of other targets. I mean, by that angle, the best target might be a Mox Diamond that your opponent hasn't tapped yet, right? But that's also,
I like that.
You know, it's just like, who cares? Like,
I mean, how often do you just have an Aura of Silence that's just an inefficient disenchant? Like, I think that's Aura of Silence's destiny.
Well, I mean, Aura of Silence is just so good right now because it's so good against Replenish, Dreadnought, and
so good.
Enchantress.
It's on my sideboard that can cast it.
Yeah, Aura of Silence is like the best sideboard card in a format that is dominated by 3 decks that get like pretty uncomfortable when you have one in play. But again, fundamentally, my point is people build decks. They like to put cards that look like they're good cards into their decks that can cast them. And a lot of times they just fall into the trap where they're like holding a card in their hand and they're just like, oh, well, they can just imagine that your opponent, like, you know, they just put themselves in a world where their opponent is just putting Dreadnoughts in play. And they're like, well, I hope I have a Naturalize.
Not against
or the
Silence, they're not.
Yeah. Or the classic one is like the 2 Naturalizes in red green goblins, and I'm just like, look, man, just die to the oath, okay? Like, just die to the oath and have 6 in your sideboard for game 2 and game 3, because like the rest of the time you want your goblin deck to like contain goblins.
Siege Gang Commander.
Yeah, I would rather have a 4th Siege Gang Commander, an extra Gem Palm Incinerator, a Skirk Prospector, a Goblin Sharpshooter, a Goblin Goon, a Sapphire Medallion, a Ruby Medallion. Like, I would play every single one of those cards before the first
over a Naturalize. Yeah, the Naturalizes are so unimpressive in Goblins, and it's weird because Goblins is like the iconic deck that plays main deck Naturalize. I think like they have their whole
it's literally playing green, yeah.
2 Naturalize in the main deck, and then like 2 Naturalize in the sideboard, and then like sometimes some sort of Tranquility effect.
Well, way back in the first Sacred Torch tournament in 2022, D-Tau actually solitary confinement locked a Goblin's opponent who correctly had 0 Naturalizes in their deck. And I commend that Goblins player for not being in that position. Although I guess if your opponents are playing exactly replenished with solitary confinement all the time, you can justify having 1 Naturalize in your Goblins.
It's actually hilarious you say that because I don't remember this detail. But after I had top 4'd my first LobsterCon, I was telling D-Tau, I'm like, it's weird how good my matchup is against red because I don't think I could ever beat Goblins. And he's just like, why? And I'm like, well, I would just solitary confinement. Yeah, like, but they're just mathematically always going to beat me. If I go for the solitary confinement lock, I'm never improving my hand. That's what the card says. You know, like I beat red because I never improved my hand, and they improve their hand 60 times until they can't anymore. You know, but the Goblins deck is always mathematically going to find an answer to my solitary confinement and kill me.
Yeah, well. D-Tau got the 1 Goblins player that didn't bother playing Naturalize. But anyways, so like I think this sort of thing, just kind of branches into what our expectation is for a card in our deck, right? And don't get me wrong, like I think that you know, Terravor, I still hate playing Naturalize in a Terravor deck. Like I don't really see what it's doing. Like, I don't think that you're going to win or lose hinging on the presence of Naturalize in your deck, mostly because the deck is just kind of filled with cards that are indifferent to most artifacts and enchantments.
Okay, so can we take a step back? I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying before I attribute something wrong to you. In your model, Naturalize is a card. It is just one of many cards, and it's a card that people could just play or not play, and they just happen to be playing it because it's in their colors. But you don't find it to be strategically valuable.
I think I think that people need to increase the rigor with which they consider including Naturalize in their main deck, rather than just like having it in their main deck and just being like, well, this sometimes pays off, right?
And you have solved that problem in various decks by doing stuff like playing Vindicate. Is that fair to say?
1,000,000,000,000% of the time, yes.
Yeah, but I fucking hate Vindicate. It's terrible on rate. You're just a Stone Rain. Like I hate Stone Rain. Why does now I have Stone Rain for Terravore? I mean,
it's not just Stone Rain. Hold on. Stone Rain for Terravore is really excellent, right? Like, if the game is going to come down to Terravores, the deck that has the Stone Rain for Terravore is going to win.
So when was the last time you vindicated Jackal Pup?
I was literally...
Don't say you've never done it. I know you have.
I have done it, but that's the beauty of Vindicate. It's just like, if you need to vindicate, you can't naturalize a Jackal Pup is exactly the point, right? It's like, I'm only in this position because like it's still a better position.
I lived long enough to vindicate the Jackal.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. No, but like, I don't know. That's like a great example, right? It's just like, okay, well, like it's like the 1 mana cheaper isn't going to decide the Terravore mirror, right? The fact that I have 1 extra Swords to Plowshares that can target a Terravore, it just happens to be a 3 mana sorcery. Who gives it? You know.
I know this is not what we're talking about, but I need to air this for a second. I was asking people for lists for Spec Oath because I want to play different decks. So on my list is like Moxless Gat. That's a deck I want to play, but I want to you know what? I want to play an Oath deck. The metagame in the league recently, outside of SWB, who's insane and plays cards, was playing like Upheaval Stasis 3 weeks ago. Like outside of SWB, everybody's gonna these playing decks that are going to get annihilated by the overlap of Volcanic Spray and Oath of Druids, right? As Oath of Druids in general.
I love how you're just like describing 2 different cards that solve the problem of creatures in different ways.
Yeah, but like
you're like, so everybody's playing creatures.
Oath of Druids isn't particularly good against red decks, but Volcanic Spray is actually pretty good against them. Like I would like a bunch of 2/1s and 1/1s.
I would push back on I think that people just haven't downloaded the like Oath of Druids against red deck matchup, because it's just kind of like, okay, well, what's your objective? Like, how good is the red deck if they can't get any creatures on the battlefield? Like, what does the red deck become? A bad storm deck, right?
It's actually interesting that you put this, because I was just like, does the Spec Oath deck has like the Armageddon Cataclysm aspect of the deck? Like I don't even know. Right? It does it have that aspect?
It's technically yes. It has everything. It's like literally just like the.
It just
Ponzo
it has
deck,
that still. It just doesn't have Stone
Rains.
Rains. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, all these Spec Oath decks have 2 Quiet Speculations. Like Quiet Speculation is like an ancestral recall in these decks that have Roar of the Worm and Call of the Herd and Volcanic Spray, and they're just so confident about their Enchantress matchup. It's like, oh well, we just Quiet Speculation for Volcanic Spray. What could they possibly do? You Quiet Speculation one of your 2 Quiet Speculations for your 1 copy of Volcanic Spray, and you think you can never lose? Like, their deck draws 40 cards a turn. Like,
well, that's because they also have Cataclysm on the top end, right? So like they have like on the bottom end they have Quiet Spec for Ray of Revelation, and Volcanic Spray, and so like on the front side of the game, like, you know, your Enchantress is not likely to survive, and your Enchantress's presence is not likely to survive. And then if the game gets to the point where like, oh, it's kind of getting out of control, you have Cataclysm to reset.
So
and then you have good lines of like Cataclysm, and then obviously you just delete the one thing that they kept back.
What I'm saying is they were pretty confident for a deck with two Quiet Speculations. So why is it even called Spec Oath? They have like 2 Quiet Speculations and 1 Volcanic Spray. Like,
yeah, who cares? I don't name the decks. Okay, like it would be called Lanny Oath if
thoroughly unimpressed with the configuration of these decks. And I really wanted to like Spec Oath because I hate all these Thermokarsts. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this powerful Oath of Druids shell, but instead of these 8 stupid Thermokarsts that I hate, I'm going to have this powerful ancestral recall engine. They don't even play it. They have like 2 of them, and then like
well, you can't play 4 because
draw
it's like
some call of the herds, I guess.
It's an ancestral recall that turns all your remaining recalls into dead cards eventually, right?
Yeah, this is a problematic deck, the deck construction gods.
Well, you could, okay, I mean, people have talked about playing intuition instead of spec, but what if you just played 1 spec and 2 intuition or 3 intuition?
Are we
getting somewhere?
The concept of intuitioning for
Oath of Druids?
Oh, that's not a bad one, but like the Armageddon /
your
Cataclysm aspect of the deck.
Turn 4 Oath of Druids, so that turn 4 Oath of Druids, so you can finally trigger it on turn 5. That's why you need Mox Diamond, by the way. So you can go turn 2 Intuition, turn 3 Oath of Druids, turn 4 trigger Oath of Druids. So didn't mill any lands.
So here's the way that it works. I think people don't understand this. Burn decks beat Terravore decks unless, okay? If the Terravore deck gets the combo, or like the burn deck doesn't know what's going on and they get caught with a bunch of Jackal Pups under Oath of Druids, the Terravore deck can win those too. But
I just play the Jackal Pups. I just no,
Jackal Pups. I'm saying that's in the range of games that the Terravore deck can win. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
I'm just clarifying. If somebody's listening to this and they think that Mike is saying to not play Jackal Pup, Lanny is saying just play the Jackal Pup.
No, Mike is saying some of the games you lose are the games where you get caught.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm just adding on another layer, which is
time.
I'm just adding on a layer, which is that if you're listening to this and you think you should not play Jackal Pup against Oath of Druids, my answer to that is just play Jackal Pup against Oath of Druids, and then if your opponent plays Oath of Druids, just like bolt your Jackal Pup and live your life. Like it happens.
Sometimes you win,
and it's totally fine. Yeah,
right.
Like,
so all I'm saying is
you will survive
in the range of the games that you lose. Okay, is the games that you get caught by Oath of Druids. Anyway, but the games that Terravore strategically wins are the ones where they combo off, right? Because there's not really anything that the burn deck can do if the Terravore deck has like 10 life
and by combo specifically what needs to do is first you need to get 4 lands in all graveyards so that when you play Terravore it doesn't get bolted to death.
Yeah.
Second,
so
you need to cast Cataclysm or Armageddon.
Live to the turn where you cast Cataclysm or Armageddon, right?
And if your opponent just happens to be like, oh, I've got a Grim Lavamancer in play, and your Terravore is a 4/4, and I have 2 lands in my graveyard.
There's a lot of problems with this, and
which is why you need Oath in your deck, because you'll trigger Oath on your opponent's Grim Lavamancer.
A meaningful number of games that the burn deck loses to this. So, in the Bougie Discord, Sam Black was just like, why don't you just intuition for the Armageddon aspect if you think of this as a combo deck? And I'm like, I was pretty persuaded by that, but
until you realize that you need a 4/4 Terravore in play that hasn't gotten killed by Grim Lavamancer by this point.
I don't find this to be a fun deck
to
play.
You can cast your 7-mana Armageddon against burn.
It's just not. It seems like a lot of thinking. Like not a lot.
The move would work against black-white control, so you've got that going, or blue-white.
Okay, well, there you go. So I like to play burn. I like to engineer the game. I like to play Dreadnot. You know why I like to play Dreadnought? I like to play Dreadnought in stage 3. That's like the fact that you get all the free wins is just like, okay, that's a bonus. I love when the opponent gets me.
The free wins are taking away of the joy of casting Flash of Insight and stacking your
love
deck.
when the opponent gets me and then I just put it together and get them with like 4 cards left in my library. I love that. That's what I like about Dreadnought. Or getting them with the brain freeze, right? Like those are the 2 things that I like about the deck. Yes, you win a lot of games inside of 5 turns. And that's in the range, but that's not actually what I like about it. I love
So if Berlin bans Vision Charm, you're just like, just pass me the Reality Ripple. I don't care.
Yes, no problem, right? So, like as an example, I could have counterspelled a Goblin Tinker or whatever, but instead I foiled the Goblin Tinker with Flash of Insight, so I could Flash of Insight, right? Like I don't need to use this counterspell. I have Flash of Insight I could discard here, right? Like that's the thing I like about the deck. And
I have to sell you on this Oath Ponza deck with Smokestack though, because I think the pitch is actually quite simple.
Is it mono green?
No, it's just green-red.
It's green-red?
Yeah.
So I can't kill somebody else's Terravore.
Nobody else has a Terravore. Okay, you're the Terravore.
Everybody's either Terravores or Hypnotic Specters these days. There's so many.
I mean, you can beat a Spectre. A Spectre is just like you just put Oath of Druids into play against the Spectre deck, right?
All right, I'm listening.
Okay, that's actually just it just beats Replenish. If nobody's playing Replenish, then whatever, don't bother, I guess. But like it beats Replenish, which is just like the deal.
The Smokestack deck beats Replenish. You're saying
that's correct? Yeah.
Do I have Stone Rains?
Yeah, you're literally guess where we found the spot for Smokestack. We just got Naturalize. like okay, it's that simple.
So this is just like red-green Oath Peluche with Wild Growth instead of Mox and Smokestack instead of Naturalize.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is that you can just play. I also don't play the main deck Pyroclasm because I play a main deck Volcanic Spray, and I don't play the second main deck Pyroclasm, and then the Volcanic Spray is just a hedge against elves. Right. The only thing you actually don't even have to play the spray.
Well, you still have Oath, right? Oath is really the thing that messes up elves. But the thing it's
like if elves is trying to set up a 2-turn kill where they trigger Oath, like they'll trigger Oath and you spray them.
So the thing that I don't like about this deck sight unseen is in testing, I lost a fair number of games with Dreadnot to Oath variants because they have main deck Naturalize. You can kill my Dreadnought.
Okay, so
now you can't kill Dreadnought anymore.
So let me sell you on the Smokestack against Dreadnought angle, which is just that Smokestack makes it so that you have perpetual land destruction that is unaffected by Gush or Daze. So
yeah, but they just go fast.
I mean, if they go fast, then if they go fast, it's fine. If they go fast, you board in your Pyroblast and your Naturalizes, and you still play like that game, right? But in every single slow game, you'll always get them, and they don't always have the option to go fast, right? If you just have 0 resistance, they can't go fast, and you have Rishon and Port. So like, the line becomes like you're playing against a super landlight deck. Now, granted, like a lot of good things have to happen. Your Smokestack has to like not get annulled or whatever. But the point is, the Oath Ponza deck. And this was in the Tide era. I actually don't know how it's evolved since the Tide era, right? But the Oath Ponza deck had a problem, which was always that like it played 8 Stone Rains, and in matchups where Stone Rains aren't good, it would like have to board out Stone Rains and like bring in Call the Herd, and Call the Herd just like doesn't do anything out of the sideboard against,
it's like a hyper linear gathering card. Yeah, like
it's good against mid-range decks, right? But it's like it doesn't do anything.
Mid-range decks that don't have creatures that are bigger than 3/3.
Well, there are no creatures bigger than 3. There's barely any. Like the creatures bigger than 3/3 are like Psychotog and Exalted Angel, end of list. But I don't want to get too into
Blossoms.
Oh, Wall of Blossoms is pretty funny. But technically, a Call of Herd, like one copy of Call of Herd, does beat one copy of Wall of Blossoms. So it works out.
Wall of Blossoms also comes with a friend, so it's unclear.
If the Wall of Blossoms draws a Wall of Blossoms, then it's a wash. But the thing that Smokestack changes is that it just makes it so that Stone Rains are always good, right? So like in matchups where you're like, oh, my opponent is like eventually going to draw enough lands, and then they'll break the lock, and like they'll in the meantime they'll be like plowsharing my main lands. I won't be able to get a clock going. Smokestack just like completely changes that math, which is just that okay, like for the first few turns, I'm going to go Stone Rain, Port, Wasteland, do my regular game, and at the top of the curve, instead of waiting for a target for my Naturalize, I'm going to cast Smokestack, and then you're going to lose all your lands. And guess what the makeup of the green-red Ponza Oath is with regards to permanence versus non-permanence?
It's almost all permanence. There's not a lot of non-permanence. There are some. Yeah. So I have a question. Do you leave Smokestack on 1? Do you make it go
you leave it on 1. You always leave it on 1 unless you're going to die. Because it's on 1, it wins the game.
What am I feeding to it? A land?
You're feeding a land. Eventually, you don't need your Sylvan library anymore, right? Because you've used all your Sylvan pulls. You don't need an Oath of Druids if your opponent is no longer going to be casting spells. You don't need a second Sphere of Resistance.
I guess if you're feeding it lands, then like you're feeding it, it's just basically turning these lands into strip mines.
Strip mines. That's correct. Exactly. That is 100% the idea. And so the biggest thing. So circling back, you asked about Dreadnot, and granted, in the like 8 matches I've played, or actually I don't know, because I've recorded quite a few videos with it, but most recently I was just like incredibly hyped on the deck because the deck beat Replenish twice in the recorded league, and then off record I beat Replenish again. But I didn't play against a lot of Dreadnot. But at least the plan against the Dreadnot becomes more coherent because Mana Denial has always been part of the Oath Ponza plan, and the Dreadnot players, thanks to Dr. realized that they're like, well, if I just cast all my cantrips, if I board out my non-basics back when we had non-basics or not, and I just cast all my cantrips and I only hit land drops for like, the first 15 turns, I would just like, win. And obviously Parallax Tide was a big thing, but like it just wasn't hard for the Dreadnot deck to portent Impulse into 7 straight land drops. And if your deck is, 8 Stone Rains, like whatever, but it's like, Call the Herd is like not going to save you in that situation either. So Smokestack cuts that off from them. And one of the big criticisms I had, obviously congrats to Claire for her top 4 finish at LobsterCon, but like the big criticism I had was just like, you're playing Gemstone Mine to enable your sideboard meddling mages, but like your Gemstone Mines are really, 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 really not good in conjunction with Richton Port, Treetop Village, Mishra's Factory, and just like I don't know.
I think a lot of people see the Gemstone Mine drawback as a feature because it gives Terravore +1/+1 at some point. I think like
not if your deck's plan, not if your deck's plan is to be like Richton Port, double Richton Port plus activate Mishra's Factory, double Richton Port plus activate Treetop Village, double Richton Port plus activate Mishra's Factory and Treetop Village. Like the I don't know if maybe the world like of the 4-color Ponza players is different from my world, but my world has always been like the function of this deck is to eliminate your opponent's ability to cast spells and then activate Treetop Village. And Gemstone Mine is like really not helping in that axis, because of course you need to keep tapping your lands all the time. You're not really like a deck that like that's like playing big exciting spells like with your splash colors. It's just like Meddling Mage is just like isn't good enough to warrant this kind of action. Now granted, it could be in certain metagames. Like I think a deck with 4 Meddling Mage in the sideboard and ways to cast them is definitely better against specifically Phyrexian Dreadnot than my deck is. But I also think that my deck is plausibly still reasonable against Phyrexian Dreadnot because it has the plan of destroy all your lands, and it also has the like stock, like I've got Naturalizes and Pyroblasts.
So you can sacrifice any kind of a permanent, right?
That's correct.
There's no token generation that you could do that's beneficial other than like Call of the Herd, right?
So there's no need. I mean, you can use Call of the Herd, but the point is you don't have to have anything because your opponent will have nothing, right? Like, like the like if you have a Zero Resistance in play and your opponent has 0 lands and they can never have another land again, like all you need is 1 Mishra's Factory, 1 land, and 1 other permanent per turn.
Well, at that point, you just sacrifice the Smokestack, right?
Well, you could, but most of the time you kill them before you need to. I mean, you should, everyone should check out the video on my YouTube, LANNY MTG. But the way it works out is just like, you get your opponent down to 0.
I watched most of your videos, but I didn't watch this because it seemed like I would hate it.
Oh, well, it also came out this morning, but regardless, I mean, you can also just skip to the parts where Smokestack is on the battlefield because chef's kiss. Like I played a game against I mean, obviously this is the top of the curve, right? But like I played against Replenish and they just didn't cast a spell the entire game. And like it was just because I drew 3 cards, right? I drew specifically Stone Rain, Wasteland and Smokestack, or Stone Rain, Sphere Resistance and Smokestack, and they just didn't cast a spell for the entire game. But it's a huge jump from like eventually my opponent will like start finding lands and start casting replenishes to my opponent will never have a land in play for the rest of the game. And that is a plan that you can execute against Dreadnot. It is a shaky plan, of course. Smokestack is bad against Naturalize. It's bad against Annul. It's bad against Aura of Silence. But it's like such a natural fit for all of the other cards that are already in the deck that I'm sort of surprised it's never in the conversation, because like this isn't the first time that it's been seen. The like progenitor of this deck had Smokestack in it. Like the mono green deck had
I was gonna say that, right? Like before like the Oath Ponza decks solidified around green white, I think like there was like these mono green decks, and I think like a lot of them had
before it went from mono green. It was a wild deck. It was mono green. It had like the depletion lands. It had Miri's Guile. it had a lot of stuff. Like it had exploration. It had a lot of cards I really didn't like.
Exploration seems very, very weak in this deck.
Well, in a mono green deck, it's plausibly better than Mox Diamond, but the mono green deck had both Mox Diamond and Exploration. But Exploration is just really excellent with Smokestack, right?
Because it gives you a card that you can sacrifice.
Well, it gives you the acceleration and the card, so you get turn 2 Smokestack and you get the first thing to sacrifice it for free. It's just kind of like, it's bonkers.
But isn't Exploration kind of just card disadvantage?
Yeah, so is Mox Diamond, right? Like if you view it through that lens, you shouldn't be playing Mox Diamond in this deck. I mean, we can talk about Mox Diamond really quickly. My big point about Mox Diamond in the Oath Ponza deck is like Oath Ponza is like the thinnest Mox Diamond deck in the world. Like it's only doing it because it doesn't play any 1-drops. But the thing is, like the 2-drops it plays like are not impressive to play on turn 1. Like I don't think that turn. Well, let's start with Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library, not very impressive on turn 1. Discard a card so that you can portent for your next draw step instead of just playing the Sylvan Library on turn 2 is like not an advantage. Oath of Druids. Oath of Druids is excellent on turn 1, in a very, very small subset of games where your opponent like has the creature, you get to trigger Oath, and you would have died if you played the Oath on turn 2. And the only time that other happens is if your opponent is playing like Elves God Draw or Goblins God Draw. The rest of the time, discarding a card so that you can cast the Oath on turn 1, not that exciting. Sphere of Resistance. Sphere of Resistance is really, really good to cast on turn 1. If every single time I drew Mox Diamond, I also happen to have Sphere of Resistance in my hand, then I would say Mox Diamond is a great card. But aside from that, like think about what's happening at the back end. That thing I told you earlier, which is like this deck is designed to hit every single land drop so it can go port, activate factory, because each turn you're playing an additional land. Mox Diamond actually gets very much in the way of that. And then if you think about Wild Growth as an enabler for Smokestack, and before I continue, I will say that if you want to play 2 Wild Growth, 2 Mox Diamond, and Smokestack, be my guest. I think that would work just as well. But if you think about Wild Growth as an enabler for Smokestack really loves the lowest amount of Mox Diamonds that you can possibly play in your deck. And then the final point, which is just that, well, this deck splashes red for a bunch of sideboard cards. And to that, I'm just like, well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like you'll have red more often. Like, is it worth a card? You can decide for yourself if it's worth a card.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I think it is like, I don't know. I hate being the guy who's just like, I don't understand, like, because the thing was like when I made like Moxless Girotog, like obviously that's like the thing that people are just like, oh my god, like this deck works without Mox. I can finally play Girotog. And then just like a bunch of people flock to it, and it was kind of like a thing. I have a Google Doc, people check out the deck list, I've been tweaking it, like whatever. But like the Moxless Terrageddon deck and the Moxless Ponza Oath deck are also really, really good decks. Like they feel like they are as good or better than the Mox version of those decks. Like I don't think that Mox has like no upside. I don't think that like whatever, but I'm just kind of like, if you are interested in playing a deck that might be good, like you should probably try Moxless Ponza Oath. You should probably try Moxless Terrageddon. And like these are decks that are just good, interesting pre-modern decks. It is possible that if you own Mox Diamonds, you want to play them. And I completely understand that. But like, the rest of the time, I'm just like, I don't know, you yourself, right? Like, I think that you could just like play you can play either of these decks and they would be like pretty good. The Terragon deck, especially, just because I'm really not into Rishadan Port, and I'm just like, well, cutting Mox is like a great.
You're not into Rishadan Port?
Not in the Terrageddon deck, not in like 4-color Terrageddon. Because like the deck would just like port you, do nothing, right? Like I'm kind of like
that's what Andy Levine always says to do. That's the whole point.
I know. It's like deeply unappealing to me. I'm just like, there's like a few kinds of Rishadan ports that I think are kind of cool. The Rishadan ports I like that are like Rishadan Port plus Jackal Pup / Savannah Lion / Wild Mongrel, right? Like a cheap creature threat, Rishadan Port slow you down type thing. Or in Ponza Oath is like Rishadan Port in addition to Stone Rains and Sphere of Resistance. But other than that, I'm just kind of like, I just don't get it. Like you're just tapping your opponent's lands, but you're also not doing anything else. It's just like, what's the point?
Well, I mean, in the case of some of these decks, they have a way to generate card advantage around the Rishadan Port. It's not just a random land. I mean, in the abstract, Rishon Import is bad. It's 2 cards for 1, right? Like you
Right.
temporarily shut down 1 land, but in return you temporarily shut down 2 lands, right? It's not good. But if you think about it from like, chunking it up 1 level, what if your opponent has a 4-drop and now they can't cast it, right? Like,
Right, but you did nothing.
Counterspell.
You did nothing. They'll just cast it the next turn.
Maybe you're
probably if your deck doesn't like.
Maybe
if your deck,
you're searching for more Rishon Imports.
Yeah, right. And then they'll cast it the next turn after that because once again, you did nothing. Like fundamentally, you're right. Like the whole idea is like my opponent is like playing an expensive sorcery. They're like gearing up to play Replenish, and then you just like port them, and they're like, oh, I can't play Replenish this turn, assuming they don't have Frantic Search to play through the port, right? But then they'll just be like, okay, land go, and they're like, dang, they can play Replenish next turn. Like, what am I going to do now? Smack the top of your deck. Just draw a card.
Magic is complicated and difficult.
Well, the thing is, like, also think about the opportunity cost. You're playing a 4-color deck with a colorless land in it. Like,
I mean,
why not play a colored source? Well, the Rishon Import could be a Cephalid Coliseum in your Weathered Wayfarer deck. In any case, that's all the time I've got today. Congrats on the top 4. I highly encourage. Like, I think that. Unfortunately, this is like one of those, like, the headline is just like Lanny builds a deck that contains no Mox Diamond, and like, the body of the article is just like, this is a good deck that people should try, and it like does good things.
No Mox Diamond BT dubs.
Yeah. It's just like,
in case you were wondering, no Mox.
People only read the headline and like they're like missing the part in the middle, which is just like, oh, well, this Tarragon deck is just like, super good. This Oath Ponza deck is like super good, and so I've been sort of strategically changing the title. I mean, obviously, I'm the one putting the clickbait titles on the video, but I thought that once people clicked on the video, they would watch it and be like, huh, like, a lot of these spots are better in the absence of Mox Diamond. So anyways,
right.
I have 2 takeaways, which is try playing 1 or 2 Mox Diamonds. If you're not ready to like, go off the deep end, you're not ready to switch sides, right? Just a little taste, and then
I'll give you one that you might appreciate. I don't know if you paid attention to any Magic the Gathering outside of pre-modern, but there was some bans today. Most notably for me, the card Seeker of Skybreak was banned in Pauper. I was no small part of the banning of Seeker of Skybreak, by the way. So I actually thought that Rich Busey and I were going to get a shout out in Gavin Verhey's article today, which we were not. But the one thing that I will say that was kind of validating was in the Spotify comments of our last podcast, which was basically, I was like, ban Hawkeye's Bow. And they didn't ban Hawkeye's Bow. They actually banned the other half of the combo because they didn't ban the new card from the new set. They did cripple the combo by banning the other half. I had like a 7 message argument with somebody, and then today on Twitter, he's just like, oh, this was a really well articulated reason for the banning by Gavin. And then like Rich was like, oh, this is crazy. This guy like is agreeing with Gavin now, and he's just like fighting with me like all weekend. And then he went and he looked at, he had deleted all of his comments off of the Spotify comments. Because I guess he came around to our way of thinking.
He really showed a random guy on the internet.
He's actually, I guess he's like a Pauper influencer. I didn't know who he was.
Well, you could be a Pauper influencer too.
I am a Pauper influencer. I just got Seeker of Skybreak brand.
I think what you should do is you should actually play these formats that you're influencing in more often on Magic Online, where you can use promo code LANNY on.
I play it 3 times as much Pauper as I play pre-modern, and I play pre-modern a ton.
Well, I will tell you that I think it was like Seeker of Skybreak. What is it? Like they like won every challenge, or was it just top 8?
It won the first 3. It won the first 3 challenges.
Yeah, won the first 3 challenges.
First place, countless 5-0s, right?
Yeah.
Then it didn't win for 2 days. Then it won again the next challenge. So it's won 4 out of the first 6 challenges.
Well, you should be a part of that data and get out in the challenge streets and show people what's what.
Well,
then 5 with Flores might actually get a shout out for
I was like, I thought I was going to get a bump because like I had a extensive conversation with the people who actually make the decisions on this. But
I think they wouldn't want to. I think they would. It wouldn't benefit them to say out loud that Michael Flores had a hand in it. So you might have to remain in the shadowy back streets of the sub influence of the Pauper format panel. For
you know how I feel about bannings, right? Like I hate bannings generally, right? I hated the side banning. I don't like it. I prefer people to adapt to new cards and new environments and stuff. But the problem is Pauper Genesis is going to be like in a week and a half. And it's like the one big showcase event for Pauper in the Western Hemisphere. It's going to be the biggest, most important Pauper tournament that's ever held outside of Italy. And, you know, Jen the Judge, who's our local judge, and BK are putting this on. And, you know, my belief is that other geographic regions can enjoy the kind of community and, you know, I'm just going to put this in air quotes, like the leagues that we have that are so popular. Like a Tuesday league at Hex & Co. is like 66 people for Pauper. That's insane on a Tuesday night, you know? But they were not going to be there if the showcase event for Pauper in the year of our Lord 2026 is like 4 Hawkeyes bow decks in the top 8. No one will try the format if that's the case. So that's why I thought it should get banned. And normally I don't go for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely a weird one for sure, but you know, it's also one of those things where the perceived downside of the ban is like probably a bit more than the actual downside of the ban. Like, you know, if the metagame could adjust or whatever, it's probably like not that different than the metagame like without the card anyways. And then like Pauper gets cards printed into it, so it's just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna move on, right? It's just kind of like it doesn't need to be
like this is a card that was clearly balanced for limited. No one ever intended for anyone to play this in constructed.
Yeah,
it just happens to coincide with a card from 1997 that is also common in a way that generates a turn 3 Splinter Twin combo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which Pauper is not equipped for a turn 3 Splinter Twin combo, right? It's this. If you injected this into pre-modern, it would be an issue, right? But Pauper, it's even more of an issue. You know, we don't have days in Pauper, right? So,
you should just unban days then.
Yeah, well, that would be its own bag of worms. But okay, well, that's our time. I'm gonna try the Smokestacks deck, I guess. Yet another week that we don't play Moxless Gat. We'll play.
You can play Moxless Gat if you want. Or you know, I'll see if I make it down and I'll play Moxless Gat or 5-color beat down with Wild Mongrels, one or the other. Haven't decided.
I think I'm so medium on Wild Mongrel. Like I said, even the 3-0 league I had 3 weeks ago, I sided it out every round. It's but I think maybe it's just Wild Mongrel is kind of a small ball card, and if you're playing against other decks that have card advantage or mid range plans, you have to take out your small ball, right? You have to play
yeah. It's literally it's just there to block sometimes and attack sometimes. Like, that's all it does. And like it's kind of nice, you know. It attacks for 2, 2, 2, and then 6.
Do people not know this? When I was playing Dreadnot this week, I mulligan pretty aggressively in game 1 typically to try to find the combo. You know, depending on if I don't know what my opponent is on. Like if they're on blue-white land still, maybe you don't hard mulligan into the combo, right? That deck has some kind of disenchant that LANNY doesn't like, and plows and counter spells. You just beat them another way.
Well,
but inside,
quick caveat: land still has to play disenchant, right? The structure of the deck is just like it has to have answers to cards, but
yeah. So, but sideboard of games, like a lot of the time, you just keep lands and spells, like because you can't hard mulligan into somebody who is just going to have a Pyroblast or an Overload or a Mog Salvage, right? They always have it. They don't keep their hand if they don't have it, you know? So you can't hard mulligan there. So like any landed spells eventually get you to Flash of Insight, and then you beat them in stage 3. You can't even have like a reasonable desire to win in stage 1, right? I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. Well, in any case, sorry for the big break to our listeners in between episodes. I was in Chicago last weekend, and then obviously scheduling is always a thing in the summertime when it's actually like nice to do things on weekends in New York. But we will do our best to stick to it and bring pre-modern content and updates. Love Spike Colony.
Bye. Night, man.
game over.